I make a motion to approve the Alma Group firm as the finalist to conduct the superintendent search.
I have a motion by Dr. Therese. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is seconded by Ms. Stone. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I know we had a really robust session with all three of the search finalists, the search firm finalists as board members, working late into the evenings, certain nights, to really understand where each search firm stands with their processes and how they do their search firm work. Alma Group wasn't my top choice, and I know we might have a little discussion about that tonight, but all three search firms were good. This just wasn't my top choice.
Yeah, I'll say that all three discussions were good. Enjoyed getting to know the firms. Alma was not my first choice, did not become my first choice. I still went with the firm that I felt represented the best opportunity for success. With over 1,000 superintendent placements, Alma has a lot less than that. I also felt like the reasons mentioned by my colleagues for choosing Alma were, I even brought that up in my conversation with Alma, which the head of Alma said those weren't really why they would want to be picked. And so I felt like they did themselves a good service in that conversation, but I didn't think, again, from an experience perspective, that it moved the bar for me. So, and I also thought it was interesting, again, trying to think about consensus. Four of the five of us had another firm picked as one or two. Only three had Alma picked as a one or two. So, from a consensus perspective, it seemed like it would have been good to have some movement maybe towards that, but those are just my thoughts.
What stood out to me regarding Alma, and I've been listening to stakeholders, they are willing to negotiate the pricing, and they are also have a strong, robust plan to engage stakeholders in this process. They have a plan to actually conduct forums and dialogues with our students, our parents, our teachers, other staff, business owners, as we seek to search for our next leader. I also checked their references. One of the references that they listed was a public school system in Colorado, and their demographics are very similar to GCPS from the student makeup, but also in size. They're the largest school district in Colorado, like GCPS. We're the largest school district in Georgia. And they actually use Alma to hire their next leader, or to find their next leader. And that leader has served in that seat for at least 4 to 5 years. And they are very satisfied with the job that leader is doing. There's countless other, as I go through my notes, there are countless other examples where Alma has found leaders, and the board and the stakeholders, the teachers, are very satisfied with the results and the work. They also provide anti-bias training. So as we're looking through this, we can look through it in an as objective lens as possible. They also have a deep knowledge of GCPS. They've previously partnered with the district on principal pipelines, so they're already familiar with GCPS, the culture, the expectations. As I mentioned, they have a very comprehensive stakeholder engagement process. They're committed to reaching those underrepresented voices, and including going to the communities if they don't come forward. And they also will provide updates in public. That's something that they promised as well. They have a plan for And then they also mentioned transparent communication, so providing monthly updates, individualized board communications, and public-facing updates. So at our business meetings, or our working session, they plan to provide updates in the public. And then they also, in my discussions with them as I was interviewing them, they also had a plan to ask what the board wants as a consensus and meet with the board. What are your top 5 things that you're looking for in a leader? So I really valued their input and just that entire conversation.
Yeah, and thank you, Ms. Stone. I guess in all fairness, I felt, at least from my takeaway, that all 3 really did kind of those same high level, a lot of those touch points, constituent feedback, board feedback, reporting out to the community with updates. I thought they were very consistent. It is also important to note, in the interest of transparency, the Alma Advisory Group, is coming in at about $25,000 more than several of our board members' first choice of who we wanted to pick back at our April work session. So that's it.
Thank you. I think majority of our board, if I'm not mistaken, did have a first choice or ranking. I don't know if we really ranked them, but we just shared what two or 3 firms we preferred with our ranking. So I don't know if it was necessarily the first choice, but we all just provided ideas around the 2 or 3 firms that we wanted to proceed in the exploration process and the interview process. So I just wanted to be clear about that. The other thing is I want to uplift Michael for really facilitating all of this, and Lisa, Tammy. I mean, like the coordination and organization of all of the interviews and the board members having to meet and the technology, and it just was really a great process, and I want to uplift you, Michael and team. Thank you so much, Lisa and Tammy. I want to share some reasons. Again, I echo what Ms. Stone mentioned regarding some of the reasons why we selected Alma Group. I'd like to also share that the deep familiarity with GCPS I find to be very important, because they understand the culture, the climate, the systems and processes. They've already met with some of our educators, our staff. They've already worked with some of our team members here, and I think that it will be tremendously helpful as we engage in this process because of their deep familiarity with our school system. I also want to share that, the bias awareness that they provide at every step of the process is so fundamentally important. I know that we all have biases. Comes out in various ways. There's no one who's living and breathing could ever say that they don't have a bias. We have them. But it's so important for us to make sure that we're making the right decision that's rooted in objective information and not our own biases and the lens that we see through. And I'm super conscious of that. I want to be checked every step of the way. And I appreciated throughout the process how they were very truthful around the integrity of the process and holding accountable our board members and providing us with the training that is necessary to be able to understand how we can check ourselves, and throughout every step of the process continue to question and examine how we are being, why we are making the decisions, and ensure it's objective and not rooted in agendas, political motivations, or whatever it is, but really making the best decisions centering the needs of our students, teachers, and educational support professionals. The other thing I really appreciated about the Alma Group is the video simulations. They provided video simulations that specifically address character-based leadership, integrity, and courage. At the end of the day, one of the greatest lessons I've learned is how important it is to be a person of character, of truth, and integrity. Maybe we might not have all the best skills, or certainly we will make mistakes. Certainly no one's perfect, but someone who can take accountability and responsibility, someone who is committed to truth and transparency, to collaboration, integrity, those things are important. And it's hard to gauge that many times when we just look at resumes and we think about skills and experiences and track record. We certainly have to make sure that we pick the best superintendent who has the skills and the experiences and the character, and they can capture that through various ways, and I really appreciated their focus on that. I also appreciated the bilingual engagement, not having to contract out, bilingual interpreters, but them being bilingual in a way that they can go into the community, their grassroots perspective, and really wanting to engage with stakeholders, small groups, large groups, whatever whatever they need to do to engage those groups that are the hardest to reach groups. And that is so important in this process, because oftentimes when we have to make these decisions, it's usually the highly engaged families, highly engaged community members. Not that other members, because they aren't engaged, don't care. It's just various challenges that they have, but they are willing to do what they can to meet those challenges, especially those who have been historically marginalized and aren't as engaged. And the other thing I want to share is being a part of national school board groups, talking to other school board members, kind of getting some understanding around the firms they have used, looking at the track record, asking other school board members across the country. All of them are familiar and have worked with all of these search firms. Overwhelmingly, Alma Group was preferred, in particular with the larger school systems, the urban school systems that have worked with them. They have overwhelmingly supported them and provided some very concrete reasons why.
One last comment. I know, but I got to do it. I got to do it. Alma has been a part of 20 superintendent searches, 20. The other two have been over 800 and over 1,000. So just to give you an idea, I'm not sure where the overwhelming support is across the country, especially in larger districts, if only, and this is from Alma. I asked them specifically, 20 superintendent searches. So I'm not saying they can't do a good job. I'm just saying they're not my first pick. And one of the reasons that we seem to be glossing over is their lack of experience. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and I want to be clear, not to rebut you, but I do want to be clear about, and when I talk about how we're looking for truth and transparency and accountability, I think it's also important for us to be the same. And I appreciate the accountability that you provided. And I also want to share that when I say the people who have used them, to be clear, the people who have used them have overwhelmingly said very positive things about them. And they not only do superintendent searches, to be clear, they provide searches for district staff, not just superintendent.
Are we looking for district staff?
No, but no. Here's the thing, I'm just giving some clarity around what I said. Because again, when we talk about truth and transparency, I want to be clear, and I appreciate the opportunity for you to allow me to be clear, and your accountability as well. So I'm saying, for all of the people who have worked with them, I have not gotten not one negative response. On the contrary, with the other firms, I have, with the other two. So I want to say that I believe in the work that they have done already with GCPS School System, which has been great, tremendous work. And yes, this is one of these things that we talk about. This is a nuance around opportunity and access. This is a woman-owned firm that I also believe that maybe there could have been some challenges around access and opportunity as well. And I just want to also put that out there as in terms of, you know, when we say that these other firms probably, you know, had more, or they definitely had more superintendent search firms, superintendent searches, but I want to also share that the opportunities and access is also important, and that's something that is considered.
There's something to be said around the discussion of quantity versus quality. And I believe in the case of hiring our next superintendent that quality should be a priority. I too have spoken to a number of board members that have engaged in superintendent searches, and each one that I spoke to around the Alma Group had nothing but positive things to say. That speaks volumes to me. I also appreciate that the Alma Group provides training to their boards in this process. As Dr. Therese mentioned, the bias training, they are very clear in that they are going to work with us, alongside us, and provide the supports that might be needed to ensure that we identify the candidate that meets the expectations of the community. They also introduced this idea and elaborated upon the scenario-based interviewing that they put into place and the performance tasks that are developed specifically aligned to the candidate profile that we develop in collaboration with our community. So there is intentionality behind creating questions and implementing interview scenarios that are very specific to what our community says they're looking for in the next leader. So of course you can go to any grocery store and, you know, pick up, you know, some cheese, some meat, but I think about this in terms of when you go to Publix, you expect a certain type of service. And I feel that we are going to get that type of service from the Alma Group, and that's what we need in this process. We want to get this right. We want to take our time. The Alma Group was the only group that mentioned, hey, I know you have this timeline in place. It might be hard to get feedback from your most marginalized communities, especially in the summer. People like to travel. I appreciate that they are putting that on our minds and having us to consider that in this process. I want someone that's going to be realistic in what our expectations are and help us to think through what's most important. Is it most important that you identify someone in August, or is it more important that you make sure you hear from each and every one of your communities? Making sure that you hear from your most marginalized communities that often don't show up in these types of spaces because they can't for whatever reason, or they don't for whatever reason. That's important to me, that we are very inclusive in this process, because this is going to be a superintendent for all of GCPS. And so we want to hear from our varied subgroups. And the Alma Group was the one group that also said they have translators to assist with interacting with community members that may speak another language. That's going to be a relief from our district staff, perhaps, and that we don't need to pull as many translators from our district staff. So there were just a number of quality points that the Alma Group presented in our interview process that I feel helped them to rise to the occasion. And so with that being said, is there any further discussion to be had? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
So that's 3 in favor and 2 noes. So we will move forward with the Alma Group as the firm to support us with the superintendent search. Dr. Taylor, next